When Ethan's phone rang that afternoon, he expected another freelance request or a cancelled job. Instead, a strange voice told him something impossible. A little girl had been waiting for him for over an hour. His name was the only emergency contact, and if he didn't come, they'd call the police. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is the Linda's Stories channel. I hope you enjoy this story. There were days when Ethan felt that his life was slipping through his fingers without leaving a trace. At 25, he lived as if he was always starting over and never belonging anywhere. Temporary jobs, an apartment too small, a quiet routine, and the constant feeling of being out of place, like someone who had walked into a movie already underway. He had grown up without siblings, carrying only sparse memories of a childhood marked by alternating visits, different houses, and a father who had split his life between two families that never blended. Over time, everyone went their separate ways, and Ethan learned to walk alone. Ethan's apartment reflected his transient life. White walls without pictures, basic second-hand furniture, a refrigerator that was rarely full. Sometimes when he returned home late from work, he would stop at the entrance and observe that empty space, wondering if it would ever become a true home. Deep down, he was afraid to invest too much in something he might lose, as had happened so many times before. That Tuesday, the graphic design office where he worked temporarily was quiet. The evening light filtered through the windows, casting elongated shadows over his desk. Ethan organised some portfolios while thinking about the rent that would be due in a week. His contract would end soon, and the uncertainty about the next job weighed on his shoulders like an invisible backpack, full of worries. The phone rang, interrupting his mental calculations. He thought it was just another cancelled service or someone requesting a quote. But the voice on the other end sounded firm, tired, urgent. "Mr. Ethan Collins, I am calling from Sunshine Elementary School. Your daughter has been waiting to be picked up for over an hour." The sentence fell like a foreign object in a familiar setting. Ethan blinked, confused, as if the words were in a language he didn't fully understand. "I think there's some mistake. I don't have a daughter. I'm 25 years old and single." A brief silence on the other end of the line, followed by a sigh of impatience. "Sir, your name and number are listed as the emergency contact for Harper Johnson, a first-grade student. If you do not come to pick her up immediately, we will have to involve the police." The sentence echoed inside him like an invisible punch. His heart raced at a pace he didn't recognize. "But I really don't know any Harper. There must be some mistake in your records." "Mr. Collins, I understand your confusion, but the girl's situation is delicate. The primary contact is not responding, and you are the only person listed as an alternative guardian. Please come to the school so we can resolve this in person." Something in the urgency of that voice made him hesitate. As he hung up the phone, a sense of unease took hold of him. It was impossible to comprehend how his name, his number, appeared as the guardian of a child who had never existed in his life. Ethan put the papers in the drawer and grabbed his jacket. "I need to leave early today. Family emergency," he said to his supervisor, surprising himself with his own words. Family emergency, something he had never needed to say before. The drive to the school seemed endless. The traffic was chaotic, and Ethan looked impatiently out the window, watching families walking together on the sidewalks, parents holding hands with children, everyday scenes he had always observed as a distant spectator. When he finally arrived at the designated location, the school was exactly as he had imagined. A red brick building, a colourful playground, now empty, and a silence indicating that classes had ended long ago. His footsteps echoed in the polished corridor as he followed the signs directing him to the administration office. The receptionist, a lady with red-framed glasses, guided him to a small waiting room where a girl was sitting on a bench, hugging a backpack larger than herself. Her eyes were big, attentive, wary. Within them was a mix of fragility and strength that immediately disarmed him. Her brown hair fell in curls over her shoulders, and a small butterfly-shaped brooch held her bangs to the side. Ethan estimated she was about 6, maybe 7 years old. The girl did not seem surprised to see him, only relieved, as if she recognized something familiar in him, even though he didn't know her. The principal, Mrs. Peterson, explained the situation in a low voice while the child waited, swinging her legs which couldn't reach the floor. "The contact left in the documents was yours. A woman named Lily Johnson filled out the forms at the beginning of the school year. We tried calling her several times today, but to no avail. We were informed she was in a car accident this morning and is hospitalized. You are the only alternative contact we have." The name entered his mind like a distant memory, almost faded, yet still alive enough to throb. Lily was the name of the sister he hadn't seen since childhood, a daughter from another marriage of his father, with whom he had never truly lived. The family separation was more than geographic. It was emotional, silent, definitive. Each child remained on their side of life without bridges, without attempts, without explanations. Just distance, just absence. "Lily," he murmured, the strange name on his lips after so many years. "Lily is my half-sister." The principal nodded, a mix of relief and concern on her face. "So you are really Harper's uncle. She mentioned an uncle, but we have never seen you before." Ethan looked at the girl again. His niece. A niece he didn't even know existed until minutes ago. He tried to remember the last time he spoke to Lily. Maybe 10 years ago? Shy phone calls in adolescence, a few sparse messages, until silence settled like a wall between them. "Which hospital is she in?" he asked, suddenly feeling responsible for this child who watched him with eyes identical to her mother's. After receiving the necessary information and signing some papers confirming he was related to the girl, Ethan approached Harper. He knelt down to her level, unsure how to proceed. "Hi, Harper. I'm Ethan, your mum's brother." The girl studied him carefully, as if trying to confirm the information from his face. "Mum has your picture," she finally replied, her voice small but determined. "Younger, with long hair." That simple sentence hit Ethan with unexpected force. Lily kept a photo of him? After so much time, so much silence, so much deliberate forgetting, did she still hold on to something that connected them? The way home was quiet. Harper walked beside him, holding her yellow backpack tightly as if it was a shield. Ethan tried to think about what to do, how to act, what to say to this child he had just met and who, somehow, was part of his blood. His apartment had never seemed as small as the moment he opened the door for Harper to enter. He looked at the space through her eyes, the table covered with unfinished drawings, the tiny kitchen with breakfast dishes still in the sink, clothes folded in piles on the sofa, waiting to be put away. It wasn't a place prepared to receive a child. Harper sat on the sofa after Ethan moved the clothes away. Her legs swung in the air, and she observed everything with curiosity, like someone trying to recognize a new world. Her presence, so quiet and constant, stirred emotions in Ethan that he couldn't name. "You must be hungry," he said, realizing it was already past 6 in the evening. "Let's see what I can make." The fridge, as always, was nearly empty. A few eggs, milk, a withered apple, leftovers of a sandwich from the day before. Ethan felt a pang of shame for not having anything better to offer. "Do you like scrambled eggs?" Harper nodded timidly. While he prepared the simple meal, she took a notebook out of her backpack and began to draw. Ethan noticed that her strokes were firm and precise for a child her age. Small flowers and butterflies took shape on the paper. That night, while they ate in silence, Ethan realized there was a quiet sweetness in caring for someone, a kind of meaning he had never found in any job, any relationship, in any promise he had made to himself. "Your mum will get better soon," he said, trying to sound confident. "Tomorrow we'll visit her at the hospital." Harper looked up from her plate. "Promise." It was a simple question, but loaded with weight. Ethan understood that for her, promises were fragile things, easily broken. He knew that feeling well. "I promise." At night, He improvised a bed for her on the couch, with clean sheets and a soft blanket he rarely used. Harper took a grey teddy bear out of her backpack, worn from affection, and hugged it to her chest as she lay down. "Good night, Uncle Ethan," she murmured before closing her eyes. Uncle Ethan. The words sounded strange, unfamiliar, yet somehow comforting, as if they filled an empty space within him that he didn't even know existed. The following morning, after a restless night, Ethan woke up early and found Harper already awake, sitting in the same spot, flipping through a children's book she had taken from her backpack. He prepared a simple breakfast, toast with jam and milk, and then called work, explaining the situation. To his surprise, his supervisor was understanding, offering him a few days of leave. At the hospital, Ethan's heart raced as they rode the elevator. What would he say to Lily after so many years? How would she react to seeing him, and in what condition would he find her? The answer came more painfully than he had imagined. Lily was in the ICU, unconscious, covered in bruises, surrounded by wires and machines. Seeing her in that state, an old pain pierced through Ethan's chest. The lost sister, the forgotten sister, was there, hurt, alone. And he knew nothing about her life. He didn't know she had a daughter. He didn't know where she lived. He didn't know the dreams, the fears, the pains that the path had brought her, and that tore him apart. Harper held his hand tightly when they saw Lily through the ICU window. Ethan noticed that the girl was trying to be strong, but her lips trembled slightly. "She will wake up, won't she?" Harper asked, her voice almost a whisper. Ethan felt the weight of that question. He couldn't lie, but he also couldn't steal her hope. "The doctors are doing everything they can," he replied, kneeling to her level. "Your mum is strong, Harper. She's going to fight to come back to you." The following days established a new routine. Ethan took Harper to school in the morning, worked remotely while she was in class, picked her up in the afternoon, and together they visited Lily in the hospital. Gradually, he learned the little details that make up a child's life. How she liked her toast cut into triangles, how she needed a hallway light to sleep, how she wrinkled her nose when concentrating on drawings. He visited the small apartment where Lily and Harper lived to pick up more clothes and belongings for the girl. The place was simple but cozy, filled with photographs and drawings on the walls. On a shelf in the living room, he found the photo that Harper had mentioned, himself at 15, with longer hair, smiling shyly at the camera. It was a picture from the last summer they saw each other before the distance became definitive. Beside that photo there were others, Lily pregnant, Harper as a newborn, the two of them at an amusement park, on a beach, in front of a Christmas tree. There were no photos of any man, no clue about Harper's father. Ethan realized that his sister had raised her daughter alone, facing everything without the support of a family that had fallen apart long before. He felt ashamed for the silence of the years, for the baseless distance, for the unspoken apologies. He pushed aside the questions that had no answers and focused on one certainty. He needed to take care of her daughter until Lily could hug her again. Perhaps here was his chance to rebuild a bridge that had been broken before it was even used. Time passed. Weeks turned into a month. Ethan reorganized his small apartment, transforming a corner of the living room into a special space for Harper, with a small bookshelf for her books, a colourful box for the toys they went to fetch from Lily's apartment, and a board where she could hang her drawings. The routine changed. Previously empty days gained purpose. Ethan learned how to braid hair, though they usually ended up crooked, check homework, and understand when silence meant sadness, and when it just meant concentration. Harper gradually opened small windows to herself. She revealed that she loved drawing animals, was afraid of thunder, that her favourite colour was yellow, and that she kept photographs of her mother inside her pencil case. Ethan began to realise that the wound of family separation became more evident with each new gesture. Harper had silent questions in her eyes, questions about where the people who should surround her, protect her, love her, were. And Ethan recognised himself in that look, because her look was the same one he carried throughout his life. He remembered when he was a child and felt that something was missing in the world, something that other children seemed to have and he did not. He remembered the incomplete Christmases, the divided celebrations, the days he realized that life had been arranged in a way that always left him on the outside. The separation between him and Lily wasn't just the consequence of adult decisions, it was the loss of something that could have healed them both. One Sunday afternoon, while they were colouring together at the kitchen table, Harper asked a question that had been held inside for weeks. "Why did you never come to visit us before?" The question hit Ethan like a precise arrow. He stopped drawing, searching for words a child could understand. "Sometimes people lose each other," he began, choosing his words carefully. "Not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to find each other again. Like when I got lost at the mall. Something like that, but for a much longer time. Your mother and I were children when we parted ways, and as we grew up, we no longer knew how to be siblings." Harper considered the answer, her eyes reflecting an understanding beyond her years. "But now you've found us," she said simply, returning to colouring her drawing. That simple phrase hit Ethan in the centre of his chest. Yes, he had found them, or perhaps they had found him, and in that unexpected meeting, something began to heal. Taking care of Harper opened a door inside Ethan. For the first time he realised that the wounds he carried didn't prevent him from loving someone. On the contrary, they might make him even more capable of understanding what the girl needed. Safety, consistency, someone who would stay even when the world fell apart. The hospital called 6 weeks later, saying that Lily had finally woken up. Ethan went there with a heavy heart. He found his sister awake, weak, scared. And for the first time in many years, the distance between them didn't seem insurmountable. Lily's expression, upon seeing him standing at the door, mixed surprise and shame. She knew that the silence of years weighed on both their shoulders. "Ethan," she murmured, her voice hoarse from the intubation. "You came." Ethan approached her without words. There was no need for explanations at that moment. The past boiled down to the fact that they were there, alive, broken, but present. He felt that his sister, even fragile, carried within her the same old pain that he always felt, that of being separated from her own blood, of having grown up with a missing piece. "Harper is fine," he said, sitting next to the bed. "She's in school now. We bring your drawings every day." Lily's eyes filled with tears. Her hands, still fragile, searched for his. "How did you find her?" "Actually, it was she who found me. The school called when the accident happened. My number was listed as the emergency contact." "I put it there when we moved here 6 months ago," Lily confessed. "I found out you were living in town. I thought about calling so many times, but I didn't know what to say after so long." There was nothing more that needed to be said. The silence between them now was different. It was not empty, but full of possibilities. Harper reunited with her mother a few days later. When she entered the hospital room, she ran to her with a force that almost knocked her over. It was like watching two parts of the same soul fitting together again. Ethan remained at the door, observing the scene like a privileged spectator of what he had always wished to experience with his own family. A reunion without words, just love. A love that transcended all fractures. From that day on, Ethan visited his sister and niece constantly. The distance between them diminished. Conversation began to flow. The shared memories, though few, gained new meanings. Ethan discovered details about Lily's life, scars she didn't know how to share, choices she had to make alone. And Lily discovered someone in him who carried as much emptiness as she did. Two siblings separated by life, but united by pain. Two worlds that finally found a meeting point. Time passed. Lily slowly recovered. Harper, always close, brought colour to both of their days. The family that had never existed began to form before them, as if the accident, traumatic as it was, had opened up a space for love to finally find a place. Ethan realised that he cared for Harper, not just out of responsibility but because he had fallen in love with the idea of belonging. For the first time, he felt part of something bigger than himself. The girl brought purpose, and Lily brought reconciliation. The family that was once a distant memory had become a reality. When Lily was discharged, Ethan took her home, helped organize everything, and took care of the tasks she still couldn't manage. Harper watched everything with a constant smile, as if she knew that the man she barely knew before had become the strongest anchor in her life. Months later, the three gathered on a quiet afternoon. Harper was drawing at the table, Lily was resting on the sofa, and Ethan was organizing some old boxes she had kept. Inside one of them, he found an old photograph. He and Lily as children, smiling at each other with the innocence of those who don't understand how the world can separate what is born together. The image caused a pang in his chest, but also an unexpected warmth. It was as if the past finally had permission to breathe. On that day they understood that despite the losses and broken paths, there was still a future. There were still possibilities. There was still love. Life went on. Ethan became a constant presence in the routine of his sister and niece. He helped with school, attended appointments, participated in small discoveries, small rituals, and gradually he realized that the loneliness that had accompanied him for years was dissipating like mist in the sun. He was no longer just a young man trying to survive the void. He was an uncle, a brother, a man who finally understood the meaning of caring and being cared for. The rebuilt family did not erase the past but transformed it. The pain of having grown up apart became fuel to keep the bond alive now. And Ethan, who used to feel invisible in his own world, found a purpose he never imagined he would have: to be an active part of someone's life. On an ordinary day, while watching Harper run around the makeshift yard that Lily had organized, Ethan realized that happiness, so simple and so sought after, was there. Not in what he desired, but in what he received without expecting. It was proof that life, even in its most disconcerting moments, still knew how to surprise. And then he understood the lesson he would carry with him forever. Family can be broken, scattered, lost along the way. But love, when it finds space, rebuilds what life tried to destroy. And sometimes, what comes unannounced is exactly what gives meaning to what seemed empty. Ethan wasn't looking for anything when the school called him that day, but he found everything. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.